these talks for the year. We don't know who's doing this next year in terms of who's speaking. So if you have ideas, we sure could use ideas for like interesting tech people in games or related spheres. If you're interested in seeing people, we can bring them to New York and have them give talks about whatever it is they're doing. And yeah, we're really curious, like who people want to see. My name is Ben Johnson, and I'm a member of Baby Castles. I help organize this series, we don't know. Anyway, so thank you all again for so much for coming out. This is kind of a thing we haven't tried before, where we have 5 different speakers who are all going to be kind of like doing sort of a panel, sort of a presentation. I don't know exactly what this is going to be, but it's going to be cool. So if you're interested in stuff like this, Baby Castles is going to be running events all summer long. Our first big exposition is going to be on the 27th at our space at 134 West 14th Street in Manhattan. It's our first exhibition, our first real exhibition, which is our Islamic Games exhibition. Assalamu alaikum, Baby Castles. It's going to be really cool. If you happen to be a member of Baby Castles, we're doing sort of a preview event that will have some other stuff going on that I don't think I can talk about yet. But that will be like a day or two before the opening exhibition. If you want to become a member of Baby Castles, those memberships start at $75 and they last the entire year, and they get you into extra events and discounts on entry and stuff like that. So if you're interested in that sort of stuff, you can check it out. Babycastles.com, all the stuff is there. You can sign up for our mailing list, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, enough of that. So let's join me in welcoming now Kaho Abe, Ramsey Nasser, Heather Kelly, Ivan Safran, and Adriel Wallach talking about the train jam.
So, I think it would maybe make sense if Adriel started by describing what the train jam was, and then we can talk about our individual experiences.
Yeah, I can sort of start this off. So I guess for people who don't know what train jam was a game jam on a train that went from Chicago to San Francisco, which was a 52-hour train ride. And it was right before GDC last year, so it was basically the day before GDC started is when we got in there. Basically, it was sort of born out of the idea. I had taken a train from Boston to Seattle for PAX Prime the previous year, and I did that sort of alone and by myself, which was awesome, except for the part where I was super lonely. So every time I told people about it, it sort of came up that it should be a jam, because that would be fun to just get a bunch of people onto a train, and I sort of made that happen just by calling up Amtrak and making a group reservation and making a stupid website, and I ordered like 30 tickets thinking nobody would be interested in it, and then all of a sudden all 30 of those tickets went away, so I doubled the tickets and then all those went away, so we ended up with about 60 people on the train, which was way more than I was sort of expecting. But yeah, it was overall really, really awesome. I don't really know how much into detail I want to go with that yet, and I don't know. I'm not sure what to talk about too much about Train Jam yet.
I have a question, Adriel. You said it was about 60. That was 60 jammers, but weren't there also a lot of other people that were there, like documenting it and such as that?
Yeah, so there was actually, I think the total numbers, I used to know these off the top of my head, but it's been a few months now. I think there was 57 jammers total, and then there was 1 reporter from Polygon, 2 cameramen from Polygon doing a feature for it. There was 1 reporter from Gamma Sutra, and there was 1 cameraman from a documentary called Rise of the Indies Game Loading, which is an Australian documentary, so we had a total of 5 documentary/journalist people, which was kind of nice because they took a lot of interest early on to sort of document this process of a jam that was, in its first year and sort of a weird idea. So props to them for wanting to be on it. But yeah, there was about 57 jammers total.
That's a lot.
Yeah, which was way, way more than I was anticipating.
Yeah, We were like among the first to grab tickets, I think, very early on.
And I was the last.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you two were probably in the first like 10 people to buy tickets.
Yeah.
And then Heather literally was what, like 2 days before you
Yeah.
got me on every single social media
I was like, Adriel, are there tickets?
ever. Yeah, and my phone was dead, and luckily, so there was actually supposed to be another journalist on this, a guy from, oh my gosh, totally escaping me where he was from. Oh, Destructoid, and then he bailed at the last minute, and so I had the spare extra ticket, and there you go, you got it.
I'm gonna pull up some of Adriel and Ivan's photos just to show.
Yeah, I sort of pulled a random smattering of photos. I got a little lost in the nostalgia of looking at the photos when I started picking them out, because it was such like a super cool experience. So this was the group photo, so you can see the size of the entirety of it. The funniest thing to me is in the very front center is like the journalists. Out of all the people who were in the front center, it's the journalists.
Recursion.
Oh my god.
Falling
Oh,
into
yours.
infinite pit. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so this was us all after the train jam. So this is 52 hours of us all stuck on a train with limited showers.
Yeah.
We all smelled pretty bad.
It was, yeah, everybody got to know each other in like very olfactory ways.
Yeah, it was a really interesting environment for a jam, being on a train, because you were sort of super forced to interact with each other, because I mean this is how big the train was, that's as wide as it was. This is the observation car, which is where basically everybody hung out for the most part, especially since the people who were in the first class versus the coach class like go to each other's things and everything, so everybody hung out in the observation car. So it was about this big, and we all sort of took it over. So we all got to know each other pretty well, from what I can tell, because we were all basically on top of each other for 52 hours, which was actually really neat, because I feel like a lot of jams, when you're in a location like a university or other places for jams, you sort of like go off in your groups and you don't really mingle with the other groups for the whole weekend, and I always find that such a shame. And whereas, this jam, we were all sort of forced to overhear each other's conversations and butt in on each other's conversations. Like, I know there was one artist who worked for like 5 different teams just because he was near them, and they all knew he was fast.
Yeah, and even without like directly interacting with other people, there was one team that was doing this crazy Oculus Rift stuff, and I just keep walking by these people covered in Oculus hardware and like working on. But then finally seeing the game at the end. So even if you didn't go out of your way to interact with people, they were just like you had to like look over.
You had to step over them at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the fact, by the way, that somebody brought an Oculus on the train. Like, how bonkers is that?
Yeah, so they were like sitting in the corner with the Oculus on and looking for like dystopian future, like.
That was one of my favorite parts. So I was talking to the team with the Oculus, and one of the Amtrak attendants, the lady who was in the coach class, I think her name was Barbara, she is sort of this elderly lady, comes through and she's asking what this is, and so we're trying to explain to her what the Oculus is and what VR is and all those things that you try to explain to somebody who has no idea what it is. And so finally we just plopped her down, we stuck it on her face, and we put her into the Tuscany demo, and she's just sitting there, she's going la la la, like walking around, just looking around, and the whole rest of the trip she kept telling me about that time she went to Tuscany. You're so cute, I love this.
The Amtrak people were
awesome.
So awesome and so so into it, and there was this amazing just like mom and dad moment when over the PA system they were like making some announcement for the evening, and they're like, and also welcome to our gamers who are learning how to write games on the train. So welcome to them. We're like, yeah, okay, that's kind of what it is.
Yeah, that was super adorable. They're just like, all these gamers who have been gaming, they're showing their games now.
Yeah. I felt like tucked in for the night by then.
Yeah, that was also a really nice thing about the way Train Jam is like, I didn't really think about it beforehand, but I was basically planning a jam in public. you know, we weren't the only ones on this train. There was a bunch of parents and kids and, you know, employees who just had no idea anything about games or game development. And, you know, we sort of got to educate them in a way that is a sort of really weird way to force education onto somebody on how games are made. But I really, really liked the amount of people who would just come up to me and be like, what is happening? What is this thing that is going on? And you sort of have to explain, you know, how games are made and what a game jam is and why this is all weird but not.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, game jam in public is. I hadn't thought of it that way, but that's totally. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah, because you were reaching out to a whole group of people who wasn't, you know, they weren't interested in games, let alone how games are made, and then we sort of shoved it in their face and they were interested in it, and I found that really, really interesting.
Yeah, so as far as game jams go, it was really sort of mind-blowing and such an amazingly beautiful and unique experience. And you're doing it again, Adriel, or what's?
Yeah, I've already, you know, submitted the group request to Amtrak for next year because GDC already announced its dates. So I'm planning on running it about the same time schedule where we get in that Saturday before. But yeah, I definitely want to run it again and make it even a little bit bigger. I sort of have plans of renting out an entire train car, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Well, we'll see how the plans unfurl.
How many seats are in an entire car?
So an entire coach class car is 75, if I'm not mistaken, which isn't that much more than we had last year, and then throw on a bunch of the, you know, the first class seats again. And I'm kind of hoping for about 100 people, and I don't really want to make it much more than that because I sort of liked the intimacy of it.
Yeah. Plus, it's like you would lose a lot of that social interaction with the other people if you only have jammers on the entire train. So we'd have to give that up.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. What?
Someone should explain this picture that's on screen right now.
Randomly scrolling through the photos, but
I actually
So
don't
I
have
can't
video.
see what's on the screen.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so this is a photo of Daphne was he was the conductor, right?
That the guy on the right is one of the the conductor
So this guy was super cool and just super like funny and like into like the jam and everything. And Daphne for a while was trying to convince him to swap hats. And he just like didn't. He's like, no, you know, it's my uniform. I really shouldn't be. And then finally, he just caved in. I'm letting you know, because she's Daphne, and she's the most convincing person. So that's Daphne with his conductor hat, and that's him with Daphne's hat. And this, and like that, the sort of shirt and the Amtrak hat. This is so perfect. It's super good.
Well, and his tie.
And that's kind of like.
You're not convinced.
So it's amazing. Like this is the kind of clash of like, no, we're crossing America on a train. It's like I kind of like.
So you know how she did it? So she used those happy meter badges and got people to like swap hats and like do things for her, and then she'd give them the happy meter,
the fun meter
badge, and then she would take photographs. It was pretty funny.
So this is.
Oh yeah, this is fun.
One of Adriel's brilliant ideas was to have these fun meters, which you could see. So you could sort of publicly indicate how much fun you were having by this little meter that you can get. And you can see Kaho here is having a lot of fun.
This is my idea of a joke. Just in case you don't know my humor.
But the irony is, you really were having a lot of
fun.
That's
why it's funny.
Yeah.
I'm so glad those fun meters were well received. I had no idea if they were just like way too dorky or not.
They were appropriately extremely dorky.
Yeah, so they turned into currency with like the civilians on the train, where people would swap fun meters to get them to do things like give them their hats. But yeah, it was like this is my favorite game jam that I've ever been a part of, Adriel.
Aww.
So thank you so much.
I'm excited about that. This was one of those things where like this was the first thing that I've really thrown myself into that may or may not have been a stupid idea. You know, like when I was first sort of like coming up with it in my head, I was like, okay, is this dumb or is this awesome? Because it's one of the two and I'm not sure which one. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to go with it. If it's dumb, I can just return all the money, and nobody has to know I ever tried anything, and it ended up being awesome, and that makes me super happy.
It really was. So we could talk about like actual
let's
game
talk
that we
about
made.
Window Vistas.
Window Vistas.
Hmm?
Oh, you can start with your thing.
Or no, you can start.
No,
You should start with your thing.
you start.
Kyle.
Okay.
Kaho.
Please.
Well, but everybody saw the fun meter photograph.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's ruining your style.
That was the punchline.
Ah, damn.
He's ruined everything.
We're destroyer
Oh,
of
am I doing
slime.
something wrong?
Yeah, there was a movie mixed in there.
Oh, is that bad?
It might just automatically play. I got it.
Okay.
Okay, it's not.
Okay. So yeah, fun meter, and then so it was a beautiful, beautiful train ride. And you'd wake up to this kind of scene, like you'd wake up in your reclining seat to this kind of scenery, or this kind of scenery. And it was just, for me, it was like so beautiful. And the environment was so beautiful. And then this lounge car, of course, is like perfectly set up. The seats are facing outward, so you can look at the environment. And we went through so many different kind of terrain too, like really arid terrain, really flat agricultural terrain. We went through the Rockies, like through these winding paths where you could see like snow and pine trees and little bunny hopping like trails.
An elk.
And elk, there were wild elk.
We saw an owl.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh,
Cool owl.
Somebody saw a bald eagle, I think.
Oh yeah.
bald eagle.
Did we?
I didn't see it, but I heard reports of an eagle, or a bald eagle, not just a regular boring eagle.
No, not just your average eagle.
Like a real awesome one.
Yeah.
But so
But the
it was
owl,
like
definitely.
it was amazing to be in this like moving box and like just seeing the world around it go by. And so the role that I played in our game, Window Vistas.
Oh yeah. Well, you could describe what it was.
It's a sorry.
No, it's okay. It's just your role. Like, doesn't make sense for that. The game.
I have a tiny video of it in that.
I have it running on my laptop that I can.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Do you want it? I can describe it. You want to
Play the
describe
video.
It's a vine. It's 6 seconds long.
So we the four of us thought for a while about what we even wanted to make, and what we sort of converged on was the video that Kaho showed you of the view. We just want to make that. We're like, this is so beautiful and meditative, and we just want to make.
I don't think you can do full screen.
Oh, is that the
You
problem?
can stretch it out.
Okay.
So
There's two modes kind of, but this is one of them.
Yeah. yeah, so we just wanted to, and I'll pull it up once we go through all of the slides, so we can run it live off my laptop. But we just wanted to make like a procedurally generated abstract train window. So your laptop screen is basically a window into this abstract trainish experience. And there's a day and night cycle, so you watch the sunrise and sunset just like we did. There's a series of like procedurally generated trees and like houses and landscapes that go by you, like little electrical poles. And that's it. There's no like winning or losing. You just sit and you just like watch this landscape go by you. And
you make vines of it.
you make vines of it.
Instagrams.
Yeah, and you like Instagram it.
Yeah.
And we call them window vistas because we're awesome and hilarious. And Kaho's
drunk.
Yes, and completely drunk. And Kaho's part was like pivotal to it. So wanna.
Yeah.
No. All yours.
Oh. Do I go back to the folder?
Yeah.
Oh.
How to preview.
So I made this environmental reader with a Flora by Adafruit, which is like a wearable technology microcontroller, but it's really versatile, and it also mimics keyboard commands. So I thought that it would be a really good tool to bring with me And then I also packed a bunch of sensors and switches just in case. But
a good thing.
I used a piezo vibration sensor, an electret mic, and also a photoresistor to record like changes of environment and sound and things like that in the train, and then feed that data into the virtual environment to influence it in that way. And so the example that you'll see Ramsey have is it uses kind of like a recording. So like there was a script that took the environmental readings and then made an XML sheet from it. And so the example that you have runs on that. And so it's like a little recording from that time in the train.
So the rocking in the game is basically derived from the actual physical rocking of the train that we were on. So it's like a real, like a capturing of that moment. And the idea was that down the line you could also substitute that with rocking data from a car trip that you were on or like a train trip that you're on to make it your own. We also use like audio, like a microphone, to trigger the sound of the Amtrak cars have these doors that separate them that make these amazing like sound, very Star Trek-y. So we sort of recorded that, and that sound plays basically on an audio trigger from the data.
Check this out. Beautiful. This is the long version. You can hear the whole thing rocking. I like that. That was just the opening part.
Yeah.
At the end. Yeah.
Those doors were so cool. You can like, there's like a little pad that you push to open it, but there's the same one on the ground level, so you could like kick it to open it. So it's spent like 2 hours just kicking these doors open.
I actually didn't discover the kicking button until like the very last few hours.
That's a like killer feature.
Yeah.
Well, now I know for next year, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Because if you're holding your laptop and like some food or something, you're trying to walk to the car,
It makes sense, but I kept doing like the awkward like elbow like hit thing, which was never a good idea.
My hands were empty. I was just kicking because Ivan, do you want to talk about polycode or like how it was built on?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was going to say before that I feel like we design a game that would just let us spend the most time just staring out the window instead of working on it, because we're like, oh, it's research. Like an hour watching these mountains go by.
Cheating the system a little bit.
Everyone was like
Totally.
crunching, trying to like finish their game. We're like, oh, we're doing research, like hanging out in the snack car, looking at things. My part in the game was basically most of the programming and writing the engine that it was built on, called Polycode, which I did a tech talk on, like I guess a year and a half ago, and I was going to release it a week after that talk, and it's not released still, so I don't really want to talk about that. It was really cool. It was nice kind of having our own tech, because you didn't have any internet access in the train. You had like very shitty internet access that basically for most of it you were in like no man's land, so there was no 4G, so you couldn't even like tether, even if you had a little Wi-Fi thingy, of which Adriel graciously provided a few, and they worked when we were like in the city, but for the most part we were just in the desert. So it was just nice having kind of everything there. But Adriel and the organizers actually made like nice little USB keys with Unity and kind of other frameworks and documentation, which were really nice. So that was really cool.
Yeah, that was sort of my pseudo, sorry there's no internet, but here's a lot of offline documentation.
Yeah.
It's also my really bad, substitute for source control.
Yeah. That was also an amazing constraint, just as a game jam, like not having access to the internet. I mean, the Ace Up Our Sleeves was Ivan wrote the engine that we were really good on, so it's like having the entire Unity team with you. So like just like leaning over and being like, oh, how do you do this? Like, oh, that's how you do this, like documentation. So that was kind of awesome.
I didn't know that was happening over there.
Oh, absolutely.
That makes sense.
The game would not have gotten
It was funny because I feel like at most game jams, there's like a lot of surfing the internet and then little spurts of work. Whereas at this game jam, it was a lot of working and then little spurts of internet. Like every time we got into a station, it was like Facebook Central. Everybody went on Facebook.
Like how that was like when we were all uploading all those vines that we made, like 17 of them would all go up at once every time we got to the city.
Do you want to go through your
I'll talk a bit about my thing. So as we mentioned before, I was the absolute last person to get on the jam, although there was a little list that was, I think Adriel might have sent me about who had already signed up for it, so I saw you guys were on it, but it wasn't like our plan when I signed up that we'd be on a team together, but at the beginning there was a time when we were like meeting each other and trying to figure out what people were going to do, and I talked to a few other teams, because it was at this really big crowded party at, was it like Union Station in Chicago, and I ended up talking to the Game Oven folks and was thinking about doing a project with them, but then we got on the train and they were in that kind of, well, it's not first class, but you know, they had their own private room, and like since the train was set up so that you can't go from the more public areas and the chair area to the private rooms, like I couldn't even meet them, and there was no like way to text them, and it ended up being like, and I basically didn't know, I didn't think I was cool enough for you guys to let me on your team.
We're so cool. That's the thing.
Anyway, but
I was so happy that you joined us.
So I wondered
that you didn't end up on their team because Adrian from Game Oven ended up getting food poisoning the second day of Train Jam and spent like the entirety of Train Jam throwing up.
I've heard about that later, and I felt so bad. But I have to say, I would have been really hard to make a game with someone who was vomiting constantly. So yeah.
He ended up making a game. I mean, he made something, but yeah, he did not have a good second night.
No, I felt terrible for him. But yeah, by then I was already deep into what would become Window Vistas, and oh yeah, the picture that was just up there. Let's go back to the little photo album again. Where did it go?
There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah, I got really lucky because you guys said I could be on your team, and actually I was a little worried because I had taken an overnight bus to get to Chicago to get on the all 3-day train, and I was a little worried that like my body would just collapse under the pressure of like too many awkward chairs and things. And so that one picture, if you can, wait.
I'm sorry, I lost it.
Yeah, is me attempting to do different yoga moves in the aisle of the train. So that's my like downward dog in the train, and it worked pretty well. Like I thought maybe I should try to create a version of yoga that's just for like aisles of airplanes and stuff like that, and market it. But, yeah.
Yes, sleeping in the train chairs, they're as comfortable as I can make them, but you feel your tailbone just slowly bend out of shape.
It's not as bad as an airplane. It's not as bad as an airplane because it's a bit flatter and wider. It's bigger.
The
so.
bourbon
Like sleeping in a dentist.
He's sleeping in a dentist chair.
It's the closest analogy I can come
And the bourbon helped.
Yeah, the bourbon helped.
Yeah.
There was bourbon.
Yeah.
The beds were not that much more comfortable if it makes you feel any better.
A little bit.
So we had this like myth, Adriel, of like the coaches and the sleepers, and like this like class divide on the train of people who get beds and people who didn't. And we wanted to like start a revolution, but we didn't.
Yeah, but it's because you'd go to like the restaurant car and like the waiter staff would be like, "Oh, are you a sleeper or a coach?" And coach, and be like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there was like
The thing is, the meals at the restaurant car are included with the ticket in the sleeper cars, so that's why they actually have to ask it for you. But it does totally sound super douchey.
Can we go back to the pictures? Sorry.
It's alright.
We're here now. Well,
There.
okay.
All yours.
So when we started out and we realized what we were going to do, basically, as a designer who doesn't program directly, I was like, okay, what do I do now? What's my role here? And then we just decided that I would start out by doing that research that Ivan referred to, which was like staring out the window and figuring out like what objects were in the world and how we could break them down into assets in the game, since they were going to be procedural, like what would they be and what would be procedural about them. And so I just started making this list of things that we saw that could theoretically be taken and made in different procedural ways. Like a building could have a certain number of windows, it could be a certain height, it could be in a certain kind of cluster, or the trees, or you know, other things like that. So that was like the first thing I started doing. And then you haven't seen any video yet of the night cycle, but the night cycle is a little bit more like magical realist and has this other aesthetic to it. And I started making assets for that. I'm also not the kind of artist who makes art that usually ends up in the final shipping game, but in this case I was. So I was drawing in this iPad app called Tag Tool that's really awesome. It's like a native two-handed drawing and animating tool that's usually used for like live collaborative projection environments. But it's also really fun for doing just sketchy type stuff. And so I made weird creatures. Like we did not see a creature like that. I wish we had. Maybe in our dreams we did, or you know, like just average tufts of grass and stuff like that. But I really had to get the owl in there. The story with the owl was that there was like this tunnel or something where a train had to be let to pass the other way, so we couldn't go forward. So the train just would stop, and you'd be waiting for some other thing to happen. And it happened to stop, and when it did, one of the attendants told us to look out the window because it was like this rock wall, solid rock wall, but there was this kind of alcove in it, and sitting right in the alcove was just this giant owl, and it was just like staring out at the people that were like, you know, 6 feet away on the train, and it just sat there like the whole time, and we just all crowded around and were just ogling the owl. So yeah, I decided that there had to be owl that I drew. I don't even know. It's in the game, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's in there. So yeah, that was the story of some of the graphics. They're a little bit more symbolic, you could say. And then the other thing I did that we already just played the sound is that I like to record audio in general, and well, nowadays I just use my iPad with an audio, what's this software called? I wrote it down so I could at least say what I was using. Audio Memos. It's just like a basic audio recording app. And I had made some like incredibly long atmospheric audio files because I just like to listen to stuff later and like remember what it was like to be there, you know. And so I'd made this anyhow, and I'd made some daytime ones and nighttime ones. And so at the end we had time to put in some audio, so I made a kind of loop, an ambient loop, to be like the background sound for the cycle of the game. And then a few things were triggered by events that were coming from the data that Kaho's hardware had recorded. And I guess the one sort of trivia that has never before been revealed is that you can kind of hear in the background that at the nighttime cycle there's a sound of a snoring in the background, and it's one of the journalists, Charlie Hall from Polygon, who's like sitting in the seat right in front of us, and I was like laughing to myself the whole time, kind of giggling, but oh yeah, it's like a very peaceful nighttime soundtrack.
You should put him in the credits as a voice actor.
Say that again? You
should put him in the credits as a voice actor.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, with Charlie Hall.
Yeah, he doesn't know yet, so we should probably ask him if that's all right first.
Or we can just tweet at him publicly.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, we could.
He said he was going to watch a recording of his talk.
Oh, he did? He said he was going to watch it?
Now
Hey, Charlie!
Oh, I so hope he's watching. Or maybe he's snoring, who knows.
Yeah.
It's very good at that. So I could talk about the bit that I did. So, like Ivan said, he did the bulk of the programming from building the engine, which is a thing that he's had and doing like the background mountains and the day-night cycle. That was all him. And I wrote some code too, but I did all the procedurally generated buildings and trees and little things that would pop up. So it was a lot of fun for me to have such a focused code role as opposed to my usual build everything and put out all fires role.
Make new languages.
Make your languages, programming languages role. That's another talk. So this is some of the stuff that I built. I built a little visualizing app that would allow me to sort of preview the meshes that I was generating. But basically, I took the list that Heather wrote of these are all the things in the landscape, right? And these are all the ways that they differ, right? Like, there are buildings. Buildings have a height. They have a depth. And I took that and I converted it into the necessary math to generate these geometries. So this is like I did not make that.
Sorry.
Yep. Click.
There.
So this is this is like a little town that's generated. So like all these little points, that's all math, just sitting that out. Kyle thinks everything that I made looks like a church. Fine. This is a kind of a buggy tree that I was working on. It's basically like cones that recursively add other cones to themselves. I took the little house algorithm and built variations on top of it so that they can be built into like compound structures. And that's where most of the variety comes from. It's like the little box with a triangle top. And that is just repeated in different ways to create different buildings. And it's all procedurally generated.
The video cut out again, sorry.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
There's a 1% chance. So there's like a chance that these things are generated. And then there's a 1% chance that this form comes up, which is a mosque, which we didn't see, but I thought was kind of hilarious to just like have mosques procedurally generated along the train across America. So literally, we're looking at the opposite of that. That was my procedural political statement. No. And that's so. There are also electrical poles that I did, but it was basically like taking in the landscape through the lens of an algorithm. Like, how do you generalize what you're looking at and just generate geometry?
Oh, I had some videos I didn't show. Can we go back? I'll show what they could be. So yeah, I have at least one video that shows parts of the team at work. It's probably this one with a horrible number. Yes! Okay, make this one play as big as possible, please, sir. So beautiful mountain views outside, snow and everything. And there's the team!
That's us!
That's basically it. You get your 6 seconds, fine.
I heard Tahoe in there.
So
I loved it, of course, when the train goes around the bend
Yeah,
and you can
the
see the
train.
front of it from the window. I like that.
So just like game jam,
And look, there's telephone poles,
Damn.
real ones, just like the ones in the game.
but like to be like making a video game like here and just moving through space like that is just like such an incredible
Yeah.
thing to do. And the whole part of the game was to try and capture that. So you can try and you can run it off my machine, and we could just have it running in the background while we do Q&A.
Exactly what I was going to suggest. Like, be running the whole time.
It's like a pixel part, please.
Actually put it in front of the monitor.
What is there a less caveman way of?
Yeah, we can also.
This is a good.
Sorry, super high-tech setup here.
You can
Well,
also
it is
plug
supposed
Yeah,
to.
There you go.
Can I full screen it?
Like, I'm
Yes.
Seeing it through recordings of it is a totally legitimate way
Yeah,
to
that's
do
that's,
it.
that's
so.
fair. Is this?
I'm amazed this is all working as good as it is. Right
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, it's full screen on the stream.
Oh, it's full screen on the screen. Okay.
now. Nice.
Oh, wow,
Sweet.
it's
Just-
mirror
It's
vista.
just,
Yeah.
mirror?
Can you show what's on my computer?
Yeah.
Everybody else?
Or is that?
I'm not entirely sure why.
Look and see it from here. I don't know.
Yeah, it looks totally normal from over here.
Except for the whole reversal thing.
I saw it reversed from here.
Yeah, no, it's totally not reversed.
Oh, okay.
Power of the internet.
Matter now without text.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it looks like that, but less pixelated. Although I kind of like it.
It matters. It's going to go back to Chicago if it plays this way.
This is the prequel. Yeah. So those are all the little procedurally generated houses and trees zipping by. This is what it looks like without the filter going through the internet. You guys can see.
They're just pretty good.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
It's like a good shader.
Yeah.
Send it over the wire.
Like heat waves in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then it'll do like a day-night cycle. That's pretty cool. So,
But it's not hooked up to any of the feedback right now.
It's just
You're
off of the
simulating-
recording.
It's a recording. So the rocking in this is the actual rocking of the train. Right? And you see the sun is starting to set. That's Ivan's like beautiful Pearl, Illinois mountain in the background, and the sunset is actually beautiful. There you go. What is
And
that?
the ghostly, weird creatures come out. Owls.
We're gonna make this in real time at first and have it actually take 54 hours to.
That would have been amazing.
Well, it already kind of is. You just look at this for 52 hours, and there you go. You don't shower. Well,
important.
part of the game is not showering.
And
One of
drink
my
an entire
favorite
bottle of
things
whiskey.
was the post-train jam like tweets about showers.
Gratitude for
Running water.
Yeah, that was probably in the top 10 showers I've ever taken.
I would love to see that list.
Oh, I heard the whistle.
And then the nap I took after my shower, amazing.
Yeah. It makes you appreciate this.
Can you hear that? It's like the train whistle. It's like actually from our train, but since it's like whistling in the front, it sounds pretty quiet from where we were.
And you see the flickering light was every time the train would pass by trees, there would be this amazing light flicker happening in the window. So, I mean, I think we could just leave it running. And
Yeah, let's do that. So, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna scoot over here.
You leave it running.
See you guys. Okay, because this is so unconventional. Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Nealon. I'm a professor here at the Game Innovation Lab in the Game Center. Normally, I go into like a one-on-one hard conversation about technology, but this feels way too cozy. So I'm just gonna. What we're gonna do instead is, I think, because we're such a nice little group, is I'm not even gonna like just do a one-on-one Q&A. So if you want to ask questions, I think you should just pitch in. Like if anything comes up and you're like, I have an idea, let's just do that. So just join in whenever you'd like to. So the first thing that I'd like to comment on is that it's really, really, really cool for me that like you guys all worked on different kinds of art styles. Like you seem to be like 2D, doing 2D stuff, and there's sprites in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? Right? And it's like I'm looking at this. I mean, yes, it's coming through a filter with the way I'm seeing it, but it meshes amazingly well. Did that happen right away? Did you just like throw it into the algorithm and it's like that's it?
Yeah, it all.
Let's just see how it does.
Yeah, it all came together.
Because the more like detailed things. I mean, there's trees in there that I guess were inspired by your drawings that you then made in like geometry, or is it?
You make the geometry first for the things that's procedural.
Interesting.
But it all fit into like then I like saw your stuff.
Okay.
And I was like tweaking it.
All right.
Yeah, so that's the biggest surprise to me. Like looking at this, I'm just like, yeah, you know what? I'd look at this for a while.
Yeah.
But I'd sit and like just chill and like have a cocktail and. It's perfect, right? Like for that, it's amazing. And I mean, like normally when people like work on the project together, and different artists, different art styles, always like, we gotta adjust something here and there, and it doesn't really work. But this seems to work really well.
Yeah, it really. I think it's a function of the fact that we were in such close proximity.
Yeah. Like he showed me the things he was working on when he first got started, before it was ever even in the actual engine and things like that. So.
There's like because we make a thing, we're like, oh, look at this cool thing I made. Oh, so there's like, you can't but like be inspired by one another. What's the door opening?
And I think it's partly because we were all kind of immediately inspired by the same thing. So it like kind of didn't matter what we were doing. We're doing it all about the same thing that we're all looking at the same time. So it kind of like naturally made it.
I'm sure that's exactly what it looked like. Right? It's like, so what? Like you mean like mind melt?
Middle America is extremely polygamous. You'd be amazed. Very low poly.
So I mean So that brings me to the other thing that I think is fascinating. I think Adriel, we haven't met yet. Hello.
Hello.
Nice to meet you virtually. I think you said it about like the internet, like the lack of internet as a constraint, right? That you suddenly. So how likely do you see it that you would have probably gravitated towards a less procedural approach had you had easy access to like Google Warehouse or something like that? Do you think it would have still come out that way, or do you think that the fact that you didn't have access to all this stuff most of the time is just like, this is how it has to work.
Right.
We have to do this.
Yeah, I mean, definitely without access to the internet. I mean, Ivan does modeling and Kaho and other drawing, but not having access to these like additional resources is definitely part of it. But I think really what we wanted to do was like, how do you take the experience that we've had and like generate that, right? And how do you just have something that can like live forever? Because one of the feelings, Train Jam is so awesome, we don't want this to end, and this is like a version of it that never does, right? So you just run and do the same forever.
And did you? So how many times has any of you looked at this after the fact? Like, have you like seen it? Do you have it as your like screensaver or something like that?
There's a really big echo happening.
Oh,
Now I've noticed it.
No, it's
better now? Oh, I still hear myself.
Yeah, it's still pretty echoey.
What happened?
I think it's more of a function of like where the monitors. Microphone
This
is.
is all super high tech.
Shove all the computers together.
Ooh, we got that. Yeah, now we have echo here too.
Okay.
So I think the procedural nature was definitely, at least for me, like, conceptually an important thing. That was, I would have won.
So when did the sensory stuff come in, Kaho? When did you? Was that like from the get-go?
Talk about the phone when you were trying to do it with the phone.
Oh, I was trying to do, so I brought an Android phone with me, and I was going to try to write an app that uses like the accelerometer and other things with it. And then what was I going to do? Look at the camera or something? Or
Yeah,
the video?
yeah, you're going to tap into the camera.
And then that was
the
gonna,
accelerometer
and that was going to be like
and
a
the microphone probably.
photo resistor. But I just like downgraded to components and stuff.
Yeah,
because
you spent like hours trying to get it to work in the way you wanted it to, and maybe like that might have been one thing. Without the internet, it was hard to even troubleshoot it, right?
I think the phone was a little old.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't know. I mean, making this beautiful like virtual world, I wanted to connect that to the beautiful physical world that we were in, and that's what I do anyways.
That's
normally,
true.
And so.
So wait, so when you leave home, you just grab like this toolbox full of stuff. Is that just a thing?
No.
Yes.
No, but I had this.
No. Yes.
I put together a little packet before I left, like that. What would be the most flexible, like smallest bunch of things that I could bring with me? So I had like a couple of different. I had like LTA junction and like stuff
What?
like that.
Wait, what?
Just in case I wanted to make a game that would burn people. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I brought a bunch of different things, like stuffed in the Ziploc bag. So.
So in terms of just being on a train, did you? So all these things happened, like the fact that you had space constraints, the fact that there was this beautiful landscape, the fact that I can only assume that you used passengers as playtesters. Is that a thing that happened? Right? Like
No.
Not at all.
We were,
So you were mostly having fun with it.
Yeah.
We worked until the very end
Yeah.
of it, actually.
Yeah, we were. Yeah,
We showed it in the final show at the end, but
Yeah.
we didn't have like a ton of.
And so the other people didn't ever look in and like, what are you guys doing? Like, what was
Yeah,
there
Oh, that
curiosity?
maybe, yeah.
They did, but
Yeah.
like.
We didn't have like a play testing session or something.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
There was a few kids that went up to a bunch of other teams and ended up playing testing a few things. There was one little boy who basically said he wanted to make games now, and he's like, I love this. He's like 6 or 7 years old.
Convert.
Cute.
Sounds amazing, right? Like normally when you're a jam, you like who's going to playtest your game?
Yeah.
Other than maybe the other jammers, but here you actually get like real playtesters,
people.
right?
Yeah.
People who have not like. I mean, so you did spend some time talking about this interesting collision of worlds.
Yeah.
Right. It's like it seems that I don't know. Like Adriel, maybe you can say something to this. Like it seems like none of this was really anticipated, and it just like all fell out of the fact that you were in the environment with. Not just
I really didn't think about the fact that we were going to be in public. Like, I knew it, we're on a train and we're going to be in public, and I was, like, worried about Amtrak saying, oh, what are you doing? Stop doing what you're doing. But I didn't really think about the fact that there were going to be all these other people, because, I mean, we basically didn't even take up half the train, and so there was another 120 people on the train who weren't us.
Nice.
And it was a really, really strange dynamic, because they weren't even tangentially related to games. Like there was no connection there. They existed on the train, and so did we, and it was really weird. But it was like a really nice weird, because it was a very interesting clash of cultures.
So in the future, when you have that solo cabin just for the people, you should put it right in the middle of the train. Make it.
Yeah,
so
that's what I sort of want. Like I want to have a whole train, like a whole coach class car, but it's still going to be with everything else. We're still going to be in the observation deck, and we're still going to be, even the way they have the restaurant car set up is they do family style dining. So if you go there and you're only 1 or 2 people, they sit you at a table for 4 with just random people, and you end up talking to these other people on the train, because that's what you do when you're eating dinner. You talk to people. So even no matter if it gets a little bit more segregated from the general public, there's still going to be that very interesting mix.
Right. There's also this weird, like, not tension, but, like, thing for me, where there were so many jammers, and I didn't know most of them, but there were also all these, like, random non-game design people. So I'd, like, see someone on a laptop, like, with dyed pink hair, and I'd be like, you could be a game, I kind of want to, maybe you could just be a random person. There was just, like, a lot of random people who looked like game designers.
just like have laptops.
Yeah, right. It's just like you were confusing it a lot. That looks like Excel though. It's like
That's why the fun meters were so key.
yeah. That's how you identify.
I could imagine that, like, the more jammers there could end up being a tension because there's only one observation car on the train, right? So.
Yeah, and that was already that was like the one tiny little itty bitty point of contention that I had with Amtrak at all, was there was one point once we hit the Rocky Mountains and it was beautiful and everybody wanted to be in the observation car, they requested a bunch of us to move because we had sort of been hogging all the tables, which sort of created this weird, like, oh, well, why do we have to move just because we're part of a group? But, like, also I understood why they wanted us to move, so it was like this sort of little weird point of contention, and I'm sort of hoping, and I don't know if this is even possible, but I'm hoping that I can convince them to put a second observation car on, like, not just for us, but just for
Why
sort
not
of
build your
distress.
own team? That's
Like,
not a...
in my mind, it's as easy as just sort of slapping another car on there, but I know that's probably not true whatsoever.
It just sounds like we're gonna need our own train.
Yeah.
But then you lose the sort of magic.
Yeah.
We can still take non-game people with us. We'll just be right.
You threw the short end of the stick there.
Just invite them on for free.
You guys want to go to the west?
So about the time, so you guys feel that the 52 hours?
Yeah.
Is that ideal? Longer? Shorter?
It was pretty good.
Yeah, it was good. It was a little bit of a challenge, like the sleeping situation. I think was not the most comfortable or necessary. But other than that, it was like, I think if it were longer, it would have been a little too hard, maybe. So it was a pretty good length of time.
And it had a lot to do with the amount of space you had too, because there were not always the same number of other people on the train. There were always the jammers, but then at the beginning the train I think was a bit more crowded, and then as people kind of cleared out, we got a little more space to throw our stuff around and take up 2 chairs if we wanted to, and so it got a little bit more relaxed that way, and that made the time not be as as painful. But as far as actually the length of time to create a new work, it was pretty good for us. And I think one benefit is that we're all fairly experienced developers and know each other, and so we had already this way of working that was very efficient, whereas some other teams that maybe were just getting started, I don't know, there was a lot of people finished their games, so I don't know if there was like super stressful, but I know for us, we finished what we wanted to do, and we didn't really have to stay up all day and all night to do it. We did it at a very normal pace.
This was relaxed game jam.
Yeah.
Definitely. Most relaxed.
Well, the thing, I mean, everyone always says before a game jam, like, have your tools ready. But it seems like even more important here, right? When you're getting out, don't have the internet, and you guys seem to have good chemistry going on, right? Like you just sort of lucked out. Like, oh, has tools with her. You have the coder of the IDE that the engine that you're working on, right? You don't have to like browse Unity something and like, how does this work? Because that guy over there is just gonna. But unfortunately, it does crash on my Mac.
Yeah.
I was hoping that I could let it run in the background today all day, just prime myself, but I didn't. I had no chance. I jokingly sent Ivan like the whole crash line.
Yeah, I was in the middle of dealing with an installation that was crashing.
We're in the middle of dealing with real issues.
Is it the run screen versus other screen?
It was just on my Mac. It was just like crashed immediately. Like started up, crashed.
Debug this publicly.
So two more things. When you guys, so here's the thing. When I go to GDC, when I come back from GDC, I feel like I need like a massive vacation because I usually run out at GDC. How is that when you do like a full train jam before GDC, then go to GDC? Right? What's that experience of going to GDC after you just had like a 52-hour event?
Oh, blur. So.
Yeah, it's just the right mixture of alcohol and coffee.
You're gonna have to tell me a trick about that one, because I don't know what that good mix is. You definitely have not nailed that one.
Ivan got to a point where on the train he had like bourbon and coffee and some other, I think it was a moonshine, and you were.
I think it was water.
Yeah. What? It was
Bourbon, coffee, and moonshine.
But he would like.
So maybe I'm missing the moonshine.
He would like assert that if you took them in the right order and the right amounts, like you could control your like sleep cycle.
It doesn't sound like rambling of a crazy person at all.
I can say for myself that the way it worked for me is that I crashed hard when we got back and we got done, and like there was like one day between the end of the jam and the start of GDC, and I kind of just laid around lazy and slept and did nothing and ate a burrito, you know. And the other thing that kind of worked in my favor is that this year was like my most relaxed GDC ever, because it just had this kind of relaxed vibe if you didn't have to actually do anything. So I wasn't speaking on a thing, I wasn't in a panel, I was not organizing anything. I was just attending, and mostly attending things that were outside the conference center. So it kind of worked.
The way you guys are describing this to me is like I had a close friend of mine once came back from Burning Man, and I've heard Burning Man. I have been myself. I heard it's like a long, it's like you're in the desert all the time. He came back and he was refreshed. Right, literally, just like as he said, it was like the most relaxing week that he'd had in a while, where he just like got to do whatever he wanted. So it's you guys are making this sound like Burning Jam, Burning
Jam.
Brilliant.
Oh man.
Burning Jam.
Oh my God.
Burning Jam.
Game jam at Burning Man.
I think if we light the train on fire, we're not going to be allowed back.
But what if it's the extra car that we added?
Didn't Robin Arnott do that once?
Yeah, he made a whole sound self installation and lit it on fire.
No, I'm just saying. I think he definitely had his breathing game or his meditation game at Burning Man. I'm not sure if but I think he wanted to do a Burning Man jam. I'm not sure that ever came to pass. So in terms of like future work on this, is this do you guys consider this a done project? Are you going to show it somewhere? Do you think it? Because I mean, I think it's beautiful. I'd like to see this play somewhere on a facade, ideally, or somewhere, right? Like, is there any ideas? Like, you want to continue to pursue this in some way, shape, or form, or is it just like this is a done project?
What are you guys looking
I
at?
don't know. Well, I'm looking at you because I have personal ideas, but I don't know if everybody else has the same ideas. So.
I'm always open to ideas and stuff. I had too much fun. I would love to work. I enjoy my team You know, like everybody has like skills.
Yeah.
I think
But I think it also works very nicely. It's just like a memento of the train jam, you know, especially since it's kind of based on the experience of being there. It's also, I like the fact that it's like the self-contained thing that we finished.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not even saying like it needs more stuff. I'm just saying, would you be willing to like show this in show this in public beyond this presentation?
Yeah,
In the sense that you like put it on display.
As long as it isn't crushing.
Well, I'm sure you guys can figure that out. I'm sure Ivan can figure that one out.
Yeah, with your guild section.
Yeah. Like, thanks, man. Yeah. No, this is super cool. I really like it, and I mean that just nicely feeds back into what you said about the audio memento thing, right? Where it's just like you record things anyway, like to listen to it, and I have also a very strong feedback where if I listen to a podcast years later, I remember I remember almost like where I walked when a certain word comes up. It's super weird.
Oh, so not a podcast that you recorded.
No, it's just like something I listened to,
and then you
and
listen again later.
Years later, someone's like, "Oh, did you ever listen to something?" I think I did, and I listened to it. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I know exactly where I was at the time when I like." It's like as if like my video and my audio is connected in some weird way, right? So
I do get really sentimental, even just looking at the.
Yeah, so that's what I mean, right?
Yeah.
So you guys like basically just like carve out so different. Actually, it looks pretty gorgeous though. But the filter is pretty amazing.
That's more the projector than the actual capture. So
Oh, I didn't even notice that the hills are animated.
The hills are the best.
Wow.
That's all I know. The hills are.
Nice job. Nice job, Ivan.
Yeah, no,
The hills looks absolutely gorgeous.
Ivan Saffron knows his way around a mesh. Say that.
Can we someone tweet that, please? Knows his way around a mesh.
I probably will.
This was definitely one of my favorite games that I saw come out of Train Jam, so I'm super excited about it. I think it's super beautiful.
You?
Thank you.
But yeah,
I would like for it to show.
No, you should. Please.
to your point about like memento, it's like people making a drawing of some like thing that they did or a painting. It's that, right? We just like
A sketch.
yeah,
really.
it's a sketch, right? Like a group sketch of this experience that we shared. That is
Right.
this game.
You could have as a loop on the next Train Jam website.
Nice.
Like a nice little something like that.
Chrome native client embedded C++.
Mhm.
I wasn't going to go that far, but sure, why not? I'm sure Polycode can export to that. Right?
WebGL, right?
Not yet, but I can work on it.
No, put it up first. But please, that concludes the official part of today. Let's take some questions from the audience. If there are any questions or comments or feedback.
I have some questions for Pablo, I think. So the pieces that you were recording, and then you said that you were kind of exporting them to XML so that Ramsey could like figure out what to do with it. Were you only doing it at a certain time, or did you have it running, and how long, like how much information did you gather to be able to generate, I guess, like the feedback, and how random is that?
I think the recording that was used was about 20 minutes or something like that. I think I tried many times and then sometimes something would happen wrong, and then I would have to start again. I think, yeah. But I think the longest one was about 20 minutes. For me, I don't know. I don't actually remember. But yeah. So, and then it's, random as in what was happening in that environment. So,
For those 20 minutes?
yeah.
And it would just take different pieces of those 20 minutes and kind of throw them in?
Yeah, because it was recording throughout. So when the light was flickering,
Yeah.
the photo sensor would pick up the light flickering, and then the sound that the doors were making and everything was picked up by the mic. And then the vibration sensor is like, so when it went like this or something, it would pick up that.
Come on.
Okay. I've run game jams before, and so I'm always interested in finding out like the things. This jam obviously had a lot of unique things going on as part of it. If you wanted to, like, what would you say were like the things that you discovered doing this that made the jam better, that you would recommend people who are running game jams not on trains try to find ways to incorporate?
So actually, not having a competition made it really good because I think it allowed us to enjoy everything more that way, and it was more relaxed that way. And I mean, in other game jams, I know that I've gone like almost lost my mind and stuff like that. Staying up all night, fighting with my collaborator.
Yeah, I've never enjoyed sort of competitive jams. I feel like it sort of takes away from one of my favorite things about jams, which is the collaborative and the sort of just experimental feeling of jams, where you can, spend a weekend working on something that you might not work on otherwise. And I don't know, when you get competitive about it, it feels like it takes a little bit of that away. And so I really didn't want to have a competitive jam. I just wanted people to be on a train and make a game and have a good time and work with each other.
Yeah.
Maybe you could do interesting that for other jams to be in more public places like this was too, just to have more traffic around from people who weren't doing the jam and have it isolated. That could be another way to have some of that.
Yeah, I was gonna say just like having it be in an interesting place that's not like a fluorescent, office room where a lot of jams tend to take place. It could be in a park or, on a boat.
Yeah.
One of the things that I sort of discovered when running this jam was basically don't be afraid to ask people for money to sponsor this. I reached out to a bunch of different companies and a lot of people said no, but a few of them said yes, and I was able to then, get soda and coffee and snacks, and that just sort of I don't know, I feel like making sure that the participants don't really have to worry about that stuff as much as normal is sort of a nice little added thing where, you want a coffee, so you just go downstairs and there's a coffee. It's waiting for you.
That was awesome, by the way.
You can thank Unity for that.
Thanks, Unity.
Unity. What was the rationale for starting in Chicago? Was that just the perfect point for everyone, or did you guys? Why Chicago?
So I picked Chicago because that was the beginning of the California Zephyr line. So Chicago to San Francisco was 52 hours, which seemed about perfect.
Okay.
I would recommend flying the day before to Chicago. We flew 6 a.m. in the morning, and then we got there, and it was the intro party, and I was like, I don't want to meet anybody right now.
Yeah, there was actually there were two people who ended up missing the train because they were I think they were actually taking a train from New York to Chicago, and because there was a blizzard happening, they ended up missing the train by about an hour. So they were actually on the same train as us, but a day later.
So again, with the loneliness, they did it wrong.
Yeah. They said they had a good time on their train, but they didn't jam quite as much.
Need the people around you to do it.
Alright, question. So actually, there's two questions now. So the first one is for all of you guys, especially Ramsey. So can you guys go more into how not having the internet sucked for working? Because I know for me, if I can get on Stack Overflow real quick or Google something, I might freak out. So how is that for you guys creatively? And then speaking of the route, so I took a bus from Virginia to California. That was 48 hours. So what route would you guys take next time?
About the internet question, it's a very good one. When I teach coding and I tell, actually one of my students at the end of the semester was like, code wasn't working. She's like, how do I do this? I'm like, well, Google it. She didn't work. Like, okay, how do I fix that? It's like, well, Google it. She's like, you're just teaching us how to Google. Yes, that. Modern software engineering. I don't know what to tell you.
Nowhere to find it.
That's it, right?
Know the keywords.
Yeah. And then know how to put the things. So Googling is a huge part of my of my work. But I actually do when I take the subway in New York, I tend to code a lot on the subway. So I have actually developed a habit of loading up the documentation that I need, and then losing that for a while, and then emerging. And it's a very different kind of work, right? It's just anything you can do is a function of what you stored up. and what's in your head, right? Like all the stuff is like, I kind of vaguely know how to do procedural mesh generation. It's like, no, you won't do procedural mesh generation. You need to like know it. So it definitely focuses what you can do on the stuff that you know backwards and forwards. Then you just end up doing that. That's what it was for me.
Yeah. What about the next? Like, do you guys are you planning alternate routes, or is that the fixed Chicago, San Francisco? Is that the path?
I'm pretty sure I'm going to stick with the Chicago to San Francisco just because Chicago is a pretty easy place to fly into, other than the fact that it's Chicago in the winter. But there is a train line that goes like the more southern route. I think it starts in like Louisiana and goes through Texas and everything. But I also really like the fact that we go through the Rockies and the Sierra Nevada and everything because it's super beautiful. Like I can't even describe how beautiful going through the Rockies was.
Nice.
And you can't really beat like 52 hours. It's so perfect.
You must go through a lot of different climates.
Yeah.
Right? Like I saw snow.
It started with snow, it went into deserts, it got more snow, and then we went into more deserts. And then we ended in California where it was like 70 degrees.
Nice.
There were the states that are west of Chicago that I'd never been to, and it was like flat farmland, but with like covered with dusty snow. I mean, it was gorgeous. It was like so beautiful.
We went through one town that had a population of 3.
And they had it on a sign?
I don't know. I didn't see the sign, but the announcer came over the PA and said, "Hey, we're going through Cisco, Utah, with a population of 3." And he looked out, and there was just like a house.
They're all in it. That's it. They're all in that house. Yeah, I definitely felt like I was like as someone as a foreigner, someone who grew up abroad. I felt like I was discovering America on this train as quickly as I can.
I grew up here and I felt like I was.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
They're selling this really hard right now. You know that, right?
It was incredible.
I mean, no, it's like you're kind of making me want to do this.
Yeah, me too. If you don't do it, do it like really.
Well, it's really annoying because now, like every time I think of going to San Francisco, I'm like, shit, I just want to take the train again, like myself.
The train is awesome. Like I said, like I took the train from Boston to Seattle, which goes through like South Dakota and all those sort of states up there, and that was also gorgeous. And it's just, I don't know, nothing really beats sitting on a train for a few days.
It was also kind of amazing talking to the conductor and the staff. Be like, God, everyone here is so relaxed and so nice. They're like, hey, it's not a plane. It's like this whole understanding of like, yeah, it's better down here.
Let's talk about Martin from the cafe car. He was just like,
God, how could we have not talked about him already? It's
seriously.
He called me Little Black Riding Hood. I had a black hoodie.
I almost called you that today.
Yeah.
Oh man.
He was a complete character, like, and he would get on the intercom and announce that he was shutting down soon for his break, but he would take like 20 minutes to do the announcement because he was like telling all these in-jokes and making
he had these soundboards that he would just like have these buttons and he'd press like a fart or a train whistle and just it was insane.
A little bit racist accents.
Yeah, what was it, Pablo or something?
See that happening. Yeah. Wait, so is the staff the same all throughout the entire trip?
No, they switch off at different points. Different parts of them switch off at different points.
Yeah, the cafe car and the attendants were the same, but I think the conductor and the people who drive the train, they had to switch off after a certain amount of hours.
Which is crazy. So the train engine, there's no physical way to reach it while the train is
in motion.
Yeah, it's entirely sealed off, man. It's probably a security thing, but they're like, yeah, there's people in this car just running this train. You can't talk to them like they talk on the radio. Trains are. Amtrak should be sponsoring this because everybody that did this, like, everyone should just take trains.
I have been trying so hard to get a hold of somebody actual at Amtrak to talk to about this, and they're impossible. They are such like this weird, antiquated system. I had to fax the passenger list to them. I had to fax them.
Surprised you didn't have to send it by telegraph.
That's a fax. Does someone use that?
I mean, it's kind of.
Well, I saw on their website they actually have an internship program.
Oh yeah, for writers.
Yeah, they have a writer's internship now where they support writers on the train.
Yeah.
Not an internship. You don't work for Amtrak. It's a
Residency.
residency, right?
Residency, yes.
Yeah.
You just go from city to city on a train making.
Right.
Like writing.
How long? What? What is this? Hijack it. Hijack it.
Every time Amtrak tweets about it, I very passive aggressively tweet at them about Train Jam.
Yeah.
They should. Oh my God! An Amtrak video game residency would be.
Yeah.
I think the problem is they don't really understand
Yeah.
video games at all. Is the sort of major problem. Like writing is something you can sort of understand as Amtrak.
Tell them that they're just a bunch of gamers who want to learn how to game.
I think after enough train jams, I think we'll make them.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping once the Polygon feature comes out, I can sort of use that as like, hey, look how cool and hip you look.
Yeah.
So right, I guess on a closing note, I'd like to. So when are we going to see that? Is there already? I know that there's a written feature, but is there like do you have a bunch of documentary filmers there? Like, is there any like? Do you guys have any information?
Every time I bother Polygon, I get told it'll be done when it's done.
Whoa, that's what Duke Nukem Forever said. And it took 12 years.
And was not good.
It was not good. No.
And then the other
They finished it.
The other cameraman who was there was a guy from the game loading documentary, which I believe is set to come out in 2015.
Oh wow. Okay, so
yeah, it's a longer documentary. It's not just about Train Jam. They're sort of taking like a little like slice of the indie scene right now. It's a really cool looking documentary if you want to check it out. I think it's just gameloading.tv.
Okay.
They said that they wanted like a microcosm of what it meant to be an indie game developer.
Right.
So they went to Train Jam. It's like it's not usually like this. Right? It's usually like.
It's always like this. We're always on trains.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I must be doing indie games wrong. Maybe everybody's on trains.
No, some people are at universities. Yeah. So, like, actually, almost all of us.
Yeah.
Gamer hobo lifestyle.
So yeah, you sold me. You sold me on this.
Nice.
I am now considering it.
Okay.
Because this sounds way too good. I could see if you can not reproduce, different style, different people, different styles, see what that's like. So yeah, thanks a lot for talking about this so extensively. This was amazing. This is super fun, and please keep us in touch with when you get the documentation and all that stuff. I'm sure we'll see when that comes out. So let's help you all in thanking our speakers for being here. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Great.
Bye, guys.
Oh yeah, wait. We still have people on the stream. Thanks a lot.
Bye. Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Yeah, no, I was like
Are
normally.
we just gonna keep awkwardly waving?
He burns me out so small. Like, this sounds like it's a good so good. Like getting into it.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, yeah, it was just a blast.
Reminds you about what's important.
Yeah. Trains and
Trains.
Landscapes, trains, change of pace.
Owls.
Different impressions, audiovisual mementos.
Moss.
All these things. Mosques.
Mosques are important.
Cool.
Go, man.
Thanks for having me.
Nice semester. That's that. That was the last talk. That was the last talk.
There's some packages. Now that I'm like,